Hey guys, here we are at third part of the story. Where starts right after the Sasuke retrieval, Jiraiya takes Naruto on a 3-year training trip. Taking his training seriously, Naruto strives to become the best he can and learn everything that Konoha denied him. Don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe button. Now, let's jump right in. Pleased Tsuchikage-sama. Oneto Kazuchi pleaded with the old Kage, the son of that man is alive. This is our chance for revenge, at least let me take a small task force to kill him. Oneto Kazuchi was a tall man standing at a height of 6 feet 4 inches with scraggly black hair and green eyes. He was wearing the standard Jonin garb of Iwa. After Oneto had graduated the academy, he had pushed himself harder than all of his peers, rising to the rank of Jonin within just a few years. Oneto had been nothing more than a child during the Third Great Shinobi War when one Minato Namikaze had decimated their ninja forces. However, both his parents and older brother had been in the war and were in that battle where Minato used the Hiraishin and killed them. Because of that, Oneto had grown bitter and vengeful, often complaining about how it was too bad the Flash was dead so he couldn't kill the man himself. Upon learning that the Kirov Senko had a son who was still alive, he had immediately went to the Tsuchikage. However, the son Daimate Tsuchikage had not only refused his request to have the son that man killed, but had also told him not to go looking for trouble. The Tsuchikage, a man who went by the name Ulnoki, was an old man with a triangular-shaped beard and a mustache. He had a large red nose and thick eyebrows, and the top of his head was bald, although he had a small patch of hair on the sides of his head which were pulled back into a knot. Ulnoki was an extremely old man with a great deal of pride and a stubborn streak to boot. Many people in Iwa described him as the stubborn old man. However, while he was proud and hated the Yondaime Hokage as much as the next person in Iwa, he was also smart. He had been one of the few people to ever fight Madara and live and had not been that Tsuchikage through several wars for being stupid. We've already been over this, Ulnoki grumbled irritably as he looked at Oneto. We do not have the strength to deal with this man. If we send our men out to kill this Naruto Namikaze, we will be sending them to their deaths. Or have you already forgotten the rumors that came from Kiri? Not only that, but he is with Jiraiya of the Sennin, who will no doubt be protecting the boy, making it even harder to kill him. What he did not tell Oneto was that even if they killed the son of Minato, it would most likely end up being the catalyst that started the Fourth Great War and destroyed their village. Ulnoki had been hearing rumors about a Naruto Uzumaki long before the incident in Kiri that made his heritage known. The boy was considered a hero to several countries and the elemental nations. Not only that, but the old Tsuchikage had received information that the Yondaime Reikage had come to respect the boy. If Iwagakure were to even make an attempt on the boy's life, they would have to deal not only with Konoha and Suna, but also Kiri, Kumo, Takigakure, Yukigakure and several other nations. But Tsuchikage-sama. I said enough, Ulnoki said, not even deigning to look up from his paperwork. To even make an attempt would not only end in failure but also end in Iwagakure's destruction. Seriously, young ones these days. Oneto stared at the Tsuchikage for a moment, squeezing his hands so hard they began to bleed as his nails dug into his palm. He made a quick bow before leaving, stomping down the hallway of the Tsuchikage's tower. He narrowed his eyes in anger at the old man's cowardice. They had to strike now, not only for revenge but to kill the boy before he got too powerful. If the Tsuchikage would not do it, then he would have to take matters into his own hands and kill this Naruto Namikaze himself. In a large cavernous room there was a large grotesque statue, with 9 eyes that were currently closed as it held out its hands. On the fingers of those hands were 9 holographic figures who were currently having a meeting. Not much could be seen about these figures except for their general outline and eyes. You say you have gotten information about the 9 tails? Asked one figure that had spiky hair and odd gray eyes with a purple ripple pattern in them. Yes, it seems he was in Kiri. The people there have started calling him a hero, said a person who looked like a man that was eaten by a giant Venus flytrap and managed to get his head part way out. A hero, huh? Smirked one of the other figures, this one with the shark-like eyes and a large sword strapped to his back. Yes, apparently he saved the country and stopped the bloodline civil war, the plant man said. Information has come out that he destroyed an entire army with a single jutsu and fought and killed the Jinchuriki Kage Yagura afterwards. For a long moment silence reigned as the implications sunk in. When it did, the people in the room had several different reactions. The one with the ripple eyes got a somewhat troubled look, while the one next to him, a female with amber-colored eyes, remained impassive. The one who looked like a shark had his eyes widened before a smirk adorned his face. One who had a pair of blood-red eyes with 3 tomoe in them had widened in shock before going back to their passive look. A figure that had a hunchback remained impassive, while a figure with blonde hair that covered one eye looked surprised and partially scared. Another figure with slick-backed white hair didn't seem to care, while a figure with black eyes had no visible reaction. "This is troubling," said the figure with the ripple eyes. "That's not all," the one who looked like he had been eaten by a Venus flytrap said. "Apparently the claim is that the Kyuubi Jinchuriki is the son of the Kirov Senko and used the infamous Hiraishin to destroy the army." That caused an even larger ripple of worry to move through the entire room. Everyone knew about the man who was considered to be one of the most powerful shinobi to grace the elemental nations. If the Kyuubi Jinchuriki was the son of that man and able to use such a powerful technique, it could be trouble. "While this information is unwelcome, our plans remain unchanged," the one with the ripple eyes said at last. "We will continue gathering information on the other Jinchuriki, and by Juwu, we will save the Kyuubi for last." The other images nodded at their apparent leader's words and phased out of existence. As they did, a lone shadow appeared on one of the fingers. "So the Kyuubi Jinchuriki is the son of that man, and to think he was able to beat my puppet. I should have realized this. He may become a problem in the future." The shadow soon disappeared as well, leaving the area to appear as if it was untouched. Naruto closed his eyes and took a deep breath as he stood on the bow of the ship he and Uro-sensei were on, known as the Lady Luck, enjoying the feel of the ocean breeze against his skin. He and Uro-sensei were on their way to Haru no Kuni, the place he had saved with Team 7 before he had left on his training trip. He was intrigued and curious about the reason they could be heading there, but like always his sensei would just smirk and say he had some business to take care of there. Still, he couldn't complain and was looking forward to seeing his friend Koyuki Kazahana again. He absently wondered how she was doing with her double career as both a daimyo and actress. It would be good to see how she was doing. "Do you need something, sensei?" asked Naruto, not even bothering to turn around. Jiraiya shook his head and grinned at his student. The boy had come a long way in the last 2.5 years, going from a loudmouth braggart to a man with the calm of a seasoned shinobi. The Toad Sennin was proud to see how strong and mature his godson was becoming, though he still seemed to keep a playful attitude and penchant for pranks. As evidenced by the time Jiraiya had found himself hanging over the woman's side of a hot spring naked with the word "super pervert" written in big bold letters on his ass. Of course he had made a comment asking Naruto how it was to sleep with that hot blonde woman Yugito, so he supposed it was sort of his fault. Walking up beside his prized pupil and godson, Jiraiya looked out over the water, sharing a comfortable silence between the two. "We'll be entering port sometime tomorrow," Jiraiya finally said as he turned to look at Naruto. Naruto nodded, having already known this. "So what will I be learning during our time here?" "Now that we have worked on gaining experience, your physical capabilities, elemental manipulation and trump card, I am going to be teaching you how to better work with the toads." Naruto looked at Jiraiya as he began to explain what he meant. "I am sure you've seen some of the jutsu I can create when in conjunction with the toads, as well as specific summoning techniques that do more than just summon a toad to battle." Naruto nodded. "You mean like that Kushios, Gamaguchi Shibari jutsu you used when we had our run-in with Itachi and Kisame?" Jiraiya grinned. "Yep. These techniques are very powerful and something that only we can do because of our contract with the toads. As we travel to the Haru capital, I'm going to have you summon the different toads and get to know them and their abilities better. After that we'll do some sparring with toad partners so you can get a feel for what it's like working with toads other than Gamabunta, Gamashiki, and Gamatatsu. Then we'll begin working on the specialized toad ninjutsu." Naruto grinned as he felt somewhat giddy at the prospect of learning the toad techniques. The toads who reside on Mount Myaboku were well known to possess a wide range of abilities, anything from spitting water and oil out of their mouths to utilizing weapons in combat. The toads were also one of the few species that had the ability to do ninjutsu, and the only animal Naruto knew that was capable of using hand signs. Naruto knew that Jiraiya was well known for his jutsu that mainly consisted of toad-based abilities. It was the main reason the man had earned his nickname as the Toad Sennin. The knowledge that Naruto was going to be one of only 2 other people to learn the toad-based jutsu was enough to almost make him shout out his joy from the top of ship. Almost. Naruto looked around the large capital city of Haru no Kuni with a large smile. It had been a long time since he had been here and could not help but enjoy seeing how the city had prospered. Originally known as Yuki no Kuni due to the fact that the country had always been in a never-ending winter, it had been renamed after Dodo had unwittingly activated a heating generator designed to melt the snow. Naruto chuckled to himself at how furious the man had been when that happened, as well as how the man got a Rasengan to the gut for his troubles. After that, Koyuki and the members of the original court that had been under Koyuki's father had renamed the land Haru because it was now always spring. The country had become very popular since then, it seemed. Everywhere Naruto looked he saw hundreds of people going about their business. Stores and restaurants of all kinds lined the streets. Many people were looking around and taking pictures or shopping for the latest wares or technology that the place was known for. As they continued walking, Naruto noticed they were coming up on the palace that housed Koyuki. The blonde frowned as he began to wonder what Jiraiya's business was and if it had something to do with the woman he had saved. He ignored the small shiver that ran down his spine as they were granted entrance. Walking down the hall, they came to a large set of double doors which a pair of butlers opened for them. Walking in, Naruto found himself staring at the beautiful form of Koyuki Kazahana, who was currently sitting behind a desk, reading from a scroll. Naruto looked at the young woman as they made their way to her. In all honesty, she had not changed much from the beautiful woman he had first met back then. Her hair was still its long dark blue color, which brought out a contrast with her light blue eyes. She was currently wearing the royal kimono of a daimyo, which was thick and managed to hide the luscious curves of her body, which Naruto knew from the one time during the filming of the movie when he had been a guard and had been ordered to retire of her, and she answered in her underwear was amazing. "Koyuki Dono, it's a pleasure to see you again," Jiraiya said with what he hoped was a charming voice. Koyuki looked up from whatever she was reading. "Ah, Jiraiya-san," Koyuki greeted as she stood up. "I had not expected you to come here so soon. The director won't even be here for another month." Koyuki trailed off as her eyes latched onto the form of Naruto. Soon a small blush spread across the young daimyo's face as she looked at, in her opinion, was easily one of the most handsome men she had ever seen in her life. With a body that looked like it had been chiseled from stone, the young woman could see his muscles twitch with each small movement he made in the nearly skin-tight black shinobi clothing. His eyes were the most startling and beautiful blue she had ever seen, while his face had roguish good looks that combined with his wild golden blonde hair and whisker marks added a feral sex appeal. Wait. Whisker marks? Koyuki nearly did a double take as she looked at the whisker marks and finally realized she knew this man. She moved around Jiraiya, completely ignoring his presence, and stopped once she stood in front of the young blonde. "Naruto?" she asked in a tentative voice. Naruto gave her his foxy grin. "It's been a long time, Koyuki Dono, and it seems you've only gotten more beautiful in that time. I didn't think that was possible." Koyuki felt her face heating up at Naruto's words, but being an actress she was able to keep most of it under control. "And you have grown into a handsome young man," Koyuki said before surprising the blonde shinobi and engulfing him in a hug, though it was not long before Naruto returned it. "I missed you," Koyuki admitted while buried in his well-muscled chest. Naruto blinked in surprise before he smiled and returned her hug. "I missed you too, Koyuki Haim." Koyuki pulled back from the hug, but instead of letting go, grabbed his arm and began dragging him out of the room. "Walk with me," she said in what Naruto easily recognized as her daimyo voice, and decided to comply with her command. Jiraiya looked after the two of them in surprise before a perverted grin spread across his features. "I knew this gaki would be a goldmine for my research." Naruto found himself and Koyuki walking through one of the many gardens her palace had as the two of them talked, making light conversation which mainly consisted of Koyuki asking Naruto all kinds of questions about where he had been and what he had been doing. The two eventually stopped to sit on one of the benches located throughout the garden. "Wow, I suppose I should have expected you to do something like that with your luck," Koyuki said as she listened to some of Naruto's stories. Naruto smiled. "So what about you?" he asked, tilting his head to the side in what Koyuki thought was an adorable fashion. "How have you been?" "Oh, I have been alright," Koyuki replied. "Not much has been going on here that I would consider exciting. Except maybe the new movie I'm going to be starring in," she added as an afterthought. "You're not seriously considering maybe that movie, are you?" asked Naruto. "I mean, it's pretty well perverted?" Koyuki asked with a grin. "Yeah, I know, the council has been harping about me making this movie too. But I still have a contract with my director that lasts for another 2 years, and with his princess scale movies all finished." "I see," Naruto nodded in understanding. "So because of the contract you kind of have to make the movie. But couldn't you just, I don't know, null and void it?" Koyuki shook her head. "No, at least not anymore. If a daimyo makes any kind of contract with anyone, it always needs to be upheld, otherwise people would think I would not hold up any agreement I made. Also, this director is the biggest one in the industry. If I were to deny him, he would be able to blacklist me and keep me from making movies." Naruto nodded as that made sense, since he had an indo that was very similar to what she just said. Contracts, be they verbal or written out, should always be upheld no matter what. He could also understand the blacklisting part, having been blacklisted by many of the stores in Konoha. "I can understand and even respect that you're still going through with this decision," Naruto said. "Thank you, it's nice to know someone understands," Koyuki replied. The rest of their time there was spent talking about how they had been doing the past 2.5 years. Naruto sighed as he looked over at the director and Jiraiya making enthusiastic motions as the set was being made, most likely speaking about the movie. Seriously, who would have guessed that the director was a pervert? He turned back to look at Koyuki, who at the moment was talking to one of the maids about something. A small smile found its way to his lips. During the month he had been here, he and Koyuki had been spending most of their free time together. The young blonde really enjoyed being in the presence and speaking with the beautiful daimyo. What do you mean your actor is sick? Naruto turned to look at Jiraiya, who was the one shouting. Just what I said, the director replied. He came down with the flu about a week before we left. And you're just telling me this now? Asked an annoyed Dode-senin, knowing this would seriously put his beloved movie back. It hadn't come up until now, the man replied. This is just great, Jiraiya groaned as he palmed his face. Now who are we gonna? He paused for a moment as he remembered something. Turning his head he looked over at Naruto with a large grin etched on his face. Oh no, Naruto said as he growled at Jiraiya, no way in hell am I gonna let you film me having sex. Naruto growled as he began leaking killing intent at Jiraiya, making the man pale. But I need you to do this for me please? Naruto growled at the man. He should have known his sensei would have some perverted alternative motive for coming here. But even he did not expect the man to do something like this. I'm not gonna do it. Get someone else to help you with your perverted scheme. Jiraiya gulped at his apprentice's glare. If looks could kill right now, the white-haired man was sure he would have just been filleted like a fish with that glare. He knew his apprentice would not agree to this willingly, which was why he had not said anything before now. Come on. I need you to do me this one little favor. Naruto glared at his sensei. Now listen here, you perverted old coot, I told you no. There's no way I can do this, besides Koyuki-chan would not want to have sex with. I don't mind. Naruto and the others turned to look at Koyuki, who had started listening in on the conversation and now looked like she was about to pass out due to all the blood rushing to her head. She had never told anyone, but after Naruto had saved her and her country she had developed something of a small crush on him. Sure, he had been a little kid back then, but he had also been the one who understood her and came to her rescue when she needed him. And it's not like he was a little kid now. Koyuki fidgeted a little as she looked at the ground. I really wouldn't mind if it was with you, Naruto-kun. In fact I would. Koyuki paused and took a deep breath and plunged on. In fact, I would feel much more comfortable if I was doing those scenes with you. Naruto faltered as he felt a small crack in his willpower. He had always had a weakness when it came to women, and this time was no different. I'm not sure. Please? Koyuki asked, looking at him with a look that was somehow both extremely sexy and innocent at the same time. I wouldn't feel comfortable with anyone else. Naruto bit his lip. Well. He paused before sighing. Why don't we talk it over dinner and I'll come to a decision then? Koyuki looked at him with a small tint of pink staining her cheeks. You mean dinner like a date? She asked. As the young female daimyo looked at Naruto, she could not help but feel as if her heart was about to burst out of her chest. Despite the time they had spent in the past month, the two of them had not actually gone on a date, something Koyuki secretly wished she could do with the blonde shinobi. Another chip appeared in Naruto's reserve at seeing the young woman's hopeful face. He gave her a smile. If you would like it to be a date, I would be more than happy to take you out on one. Koyuki gave him a large smile that threatened to split her face as she grabbed his hand and dragged him out, telling him about where they were going and that they needed to get ready. Jiraiya gave a sigh of relief. I'm glad Koyuki Dono was here, or there's no way Naruto would have agreed with this. He looked to where Naruto and Koyuki left and anime tears fell from his eyes. I'm so proud of him. The director looked at the white-haired senin before shaking his head and focusing his attention to getting the set built. Many people stopped to watch as Naruto walked down the street with Koyuki on his arm. Most of the females watching were wondering how Koyuki knew the hot young blonde, while the men were jealous of Naruto for having the alluring and sexy daimyo and actress hanging off of his arm. Instead of asking Koyuki about how she had been like they had been doing for the past month, Naruto questioned the beautiful daimyo about some of the things she had been doing since with her job. Naruto was pleased to hear she had taken it upon herself to continue her father's legacy and was in the process of creating new and useful technology. She had also told him about how she had had the railroad rebuilt. They had fixed up and upgraded the trains to now use steam rather than coal, allowing her to cease worrying about trying to procure the expensive import from Iwa. This allowed for faster travel throughout the country, making trading and moving goods and supplies much easier. Naruto had to admit to being impressed with the young woman's handling of things since she became daimyo. The two eventually arrived at an expensive-looking restaurant where the waiter nearly stumbled over himself as he escorted Naruto and their very own daimyo Koyuki, blabbering away about how honored he was to serve them. As the two sat across from each other in a small booth, Koyuki decided to ask Naruto about himself. "So what exactly has your sensei trained you in?" Uro-sensei has been training me in all aspects of being a shinobi?" Naruto started making Koyuki laugh at the perverted nickname he gave Jiraiya. "He's been training in ninjutsu, daijutsu, fuinjutsu, and I've also been learning strategy. Recently he's been teaching me the Toad ninjutsu he's known for," Naruto told her, telling her of some of the jutsu he had been learning as well as some of his own techniques. "Sounds like you've gotten really strong," Koyuki said with a tone that spoke of how impressed she was. The young daimyo then got a sly grin on her face. "I also hear you've become the hero in Mizuno Kuni, which you neglected to tell me," she finished. "Yeah, sorry, I just don't feel comfortable talking about the war I took part in." Naruto sighed, ran a hand through his hair as he sighed. "But yes, I did help them end the bloodline wars. Though I really didn't do that much." "You're far too modest." Koyuki laughed at seeing Naruto uncomfortable for being considered a hero. "I heard you were able to defeat the entire army with a single jutsu. Yukigakure even has you in our bingo books." Yukigakure had been the hidden village that was created by Dodo, who used its ninja to kill his brother Setsukazana and take over as daimyo. Afterwards he had chosen the 3 best in the village to become his personal bodyguards. After Dodo's defeat, Koyuki had allowed the village to remain and helped fund the village so it could begin training younger generations. Naruto had heard that Koyuki had let the village remain as long as they pledged their loyalty to her. He had also found out that they were using Konoha's academy as the basis for their own. "Really?" Naruto asked in surprise. He had not even realized that he was in the bingo books, though he supposed it was only a matter of time before it happened. "Yep." Koyuki grinned as she took a bingo book out of her dress. "Do you always carry a bingo book with you?" asked Naruto with an amused smile. "Usually yes," Koyuki replied as she flipped through the pages. "I thought it would be a good idea to have one on hand, just in case, you know?" Naruto nodded in understanding as Koyuki handed him the book. Taking a look, Naruto saw that the stats were his own. Naruto Uzumaki Namikaze. Recent title, Nidaime Kirov Senko Rank, S. Physical description, wears black shinobi clothing with a black hooded cloak, spiky blonde hair, blue eyes with 3 whisker marks on each cheek. Statistics. Ninjutsu, 10 is well known for having mastered many powerful jutsu such the Rasengan, Hiraishin as well as several upgraded versions of the Rasengan and many elemental techniques. Taijutsu, 9 taijutsu said to be nearly on par with the Yondaime Reikage, who is well known for his impressive hand-to-hand combat. Genjutsu, an A. Kenjutsu, 9 not much is known, but he is said to use a sword that was especially made for him, Itetsu no Kuni. Kinjutsu, 10. Fuinjutsu, rumor claims that he is a seal master that surpasses Jiraiya of the Sennin and is on par with the Yondaime Hokage. Elemental affinities, Fuuten, Raiten, and Suten. Warning, if you end up in a fight with this man, it is suggested that you run. Naruto raised an eyebrow at the information. It was a fairly accurate account of his abilities, though there were a lot of gaps in it. He was actually grateful for that, since it would mean he was still something of an unknown. This would give him a large advantage should people try to come and kill him. "I had no idea I was that famous," Naruto said as he handed the book back to Koyuki. "I mean, I knew this would get out eventually, but you've been famous for a while now," she told him, with a smile. "After all, you were in the Princess Gale movie." Naruto laughed. "That's true, I remember I went to go see it. I was surprised when I saw myself launching a Rasengan into your uncle in your movie." The waiter came up to take their orders, with Naruto ordering kaiseki ryori, while Koyuki ordered torafugu with a side order of rice and steamed vegetables. The pair sat in companionable silence as they waited for their meal to arrive, each of them having their own thoughts. Naruto looked over at Koyuki as he thought about the situation he now found himself in. It's not that he had a serious issue in sleeping with Koyuki. They had been friends after his mission to protect her, and the two had been able to send a few messages every now and then. He did like her and knew they were fairly close in spite of not seeing each other for a few years. However, Naruto did not want to have sex with her just for some porn movie and would want to be more than just the guy she had sex with for a movie, but he knew that a relationship with her would be hard. She was a daimyo and ruled an entire country. That not only took a lot of her time, but it also presented a problem if he ever wanted to marry her. A daimyo could never marry unless it was with nobility, either another daimyo or a prince or princess was usually a requirement, and Naruto didn't think that the prince of the now defunct Uzumaki counted. Naruto stuck a small seal under the table, activating a silencing barrier so any conversation between them stayed private. "Hey Koyuki-chan," Naruto started getting the young woman's attention, "so why exactly did you want me to be your The blonde cursed as he felt his face heat up. He hadn't been this embarrassed since the first time he started talking to girls outside of Konoha. "Why do I want you to do the sex scene in the movie with me?" Koyuki finished his question for him. The only sign Naruto could see of her being embarrassed was the small tint of pink on her cheeks. Naruto nodded and she smiled as she closed her eyes. "Well, there are many reasons, I suppose. When I first agreed to star in this movie, I was afraid it would be someone random actor I would feel uncomfortable with and who would no doubt use this scene as bragging rights about how he had sex with a daimyo. So you felt that since we were friends it would be better to have me do it?" Naruto asked with a small frown. Koyuki squirmed a bit as she lowered her head. "Does that bother you?" Naruto sighed as he stood up and sat down next to her, gently raising her head so that her eyes were looking at his. "No, I understand why you feel that way. I know that I wouldn't want to do something like this with someone I was not familiar with. Of course I doubt I would want to do it at all," Naruto said with a small chuckle. "I'm not upset or bothered by it, I just have several reasons why I would be really uncomfortable with doing this." "Why?" asked Koyuki. "I mean, if it was any other male being asked to do this, I'm sure they would be bragging from here to Konoha." Naruto smiled. "That may be true. But you see, I already have someone I plan on marrying, and the possibility of getting another once I ask her." Koyuki looked at him in shock. "Two fiancés?" she asked with an owlish expression. Naruto nodded and began to explain to her about the Clan Restoration Act that had been set down when Konoha was founded. Koyuki listened to Naruto with a sort of odd attachment as she thought about what he was telling her. In all honesty, it did not sound as odd to her as it may have sounded to a civilian. She had studied up on ninja villages and most of their laws, so she knew that they had things like this, especially if one of the clans that held a bloodline was about to go extinct. It was also well known that several of the male daimyos in the elemental nations had either multiple wives or concubines. She knew that Naruto had a clan because of his father as well. When word spread that Naruto was the son of the Hokage, a lot of the different royal families in various countries had actually talked about forming in with Konoha alliance through marriage. Her own council had been one of those that approved of him when he was brought up as a potential candidate for marriage. However, she did not know about the CRA, and she was sure that the others on her council did not know, or they would have brought it up. She focused all of her attention back to Naruto, who seemed to be finishing his small speech. "And that's why I don't feel comfortable doing this. I don't want to have sex with you just for some movie." Koyuki twirled her hair between her fingers. "So if it was for more than just the movie, you would?" "If we were getting married, I would," Naruto corrected. "Had it been 2 years ago, I probably would too. But now that I actually have one woman who I already know I'm marrying and another I plan on asking when I see her next, I don't want to betray their trust by having sex and then having it shown in front of every pervert in the elemental nations in a movie." Koyuki smiled as she listened to him. It seemed that Naruto was a romantic at heart even when he had to marry multiple women. "So say we could get married," Koyuki stated. "If we did, you wouldn't mind?" Naruto looked at her as he thought about it. "I suppose it wouldn't be as bad then, but..." "Then there's no problem," she interrupted him. "I'll just go to the council and tell them we're going to get married." Naruto blinked before staring at her like she had grown a second head with 4 eyes and a sharp row of fangs. "It couldn't be that easy, could it? Also, aren't you making this decision a little too quickly?" "Well, there may be a few problems since you have to be with at least 3 other women besides me," Koyuki said. "But since I am the daimyo, I ultimately have the decision of who I get to wed, and since your name came up a number of times when the council spoke to me about getting married, they won't make the CRA as big of a deal as they would with someone else." She looked down at the table. "As for moving too fast, the council has actually been asking me to take a husband soon. I don't want to end up in some loveless marriage." "And you're okay with me getting married with other women?" Naruto asked incredulously. Koyuki shrugged. "I understand why you may have to go through with it. I have read up on clan laws for various villages to better understand their workings, so I know that the circumstances you find yourself in are not as unusual as they would normally seem. I may not quite approve, but..." She paused for a second to lean on his shoulder. "I'm willing to work with it. I'll be honest, when you saved me both from Dodo and my own darkness, I had wondered many times if we could somehow be together after you grew up. I hope that's not some dig on how childish I was," Naruto said with a mock pout. instinctively wrapping an arm around her waist and pulling her closer. Koyuki giggled, maybe. Naruto made a few sniffling sounds. That's cold, Koyuhime, very cold. Naruto pulled off the silencing seal and a few minutes later dinner came, the waiter blinking in surprise as he noticed the new position the two were in before setting the food down. The two became quiet as they opted to enjoy the food in silence. When they were done, Naruto and Koyuki made a little more conversation on some of the lighter subjects while waiting for the bill to come. If we're going to go through with the marriage, do you think it would be alright if we at least went on several dates first? Asked Naruto. I would at least like to get to know you a bit better in a more intimate setting before we take such a large step. Of course, Koyuki said with a smile as the bill came. I wouldn't have it any other way. She was just about to grab the bill when Naruto got to it first. I've got it, he said. But shouldn't I get that? I mean, if it's money you're worried about, don't, Naruto said with a smile. Because of my books I've currently got about 36 figures in my account. Koyuki tilted her head to the side as he stared at him quizzically. What book is that? This one, Naruto said as he channeled chakra into a seal on his wrist. Koyuki gasped, found herself staring at a book with a dark blue cover. However, that was not what had gotten her attention. What had was the title of the book. You wrote this? She breathed. Naruto ignored the tone as he nodded. Yep, I did. Why do you? Naruto stopped talking as he turned around to face Koyuki and saw that she was staring at him, with stars in her eyes. Looking at her hands, he saw she was holding the book out to him. Naruto blinked as he wondered how the book had just appeared in her hand. This book is my absolute favorite. Koyuki squealed, sounding almost like a fangirl. Do you think you could sign it for me? Sure, Naruto said as he grabbed the book and unsealed the brush he used to make seals. Channeling some chakra into the seal on the brush, he activated the ink creation seals. To Koyuki, Kazuhan, one of the most beautiful and stunning women I know, loved Naruto. How does that sound to you? Naruto asked as he looked over at Koyuki, only to sweat drop as hearts appeared in her eyes. That sounds perfect, she said as she grabbed the book. Naruto blinked as the book disappeared again and Koyuki leaned into his side with a dreamy sigh. I wonder if she is using seals to keep that book with her. After the meal was paid for, Naruto and Koyuki went back to the palace, entering the room with all of the people running around still trying to get the set built. Naruto spotted Jiraiya and the director over near a table discussing something. With Koyuki on his arm, he walked over to the two. Coughing to get their attention, Naruto started to speak. I've spoken with Koyuhime here and have agreed to do this. Before the two could even so much as grin, Naruto sent them a glare. But I want one thing made clear, you two officially owe both me and Koyuki-hime for doing this. I expect that payment to be returned in full as well as have several requests to make. The two reluctantly nodded their heads and Naruto gave them a grin that sent several shivers of fear down their spines. First, Naruto held up a hand with a finger pointed out. No one will get to watch while the two of us do the sex scene. Jiraiya opened his mouth to complain, but Naruto beat him to it. If you don't like it, you can find someone else. Jiraiya begrudgingly shut his mouth as Naruto continued. You can set up several cameras in a room, but no one will get to see the results until we're done. Second, I expect you, Uro-sensei, to write a letter to both Materumi and Yugito Ni about how you forced me to do this by blackmailing Koyuki and I. Hey, now wait just a minute. Jiraiya interrupted. You can't expect me to do that. They'll kill me. First off, Mei is more likely to melt your balls off before killing you, while Yugito would probably go Nibi on your ass. But it shouldn't matter to you. After all, you should be used to woman trying to kill you, Uro-sensei, Naruto said with a smirk. After all the times you've peeped on women and gotten the shit beat out of you, you should be practically immune to this stuff. I'm also going to proofread the letter and make sure I know what you are writing as well as watch you send it, just in case you try to do something I might not like. Jiraiya gulped, knowing this was not going to end well for him, but for the sake of his movie he nodded. And the last request? Jiraiya asked. Naruto grinned as the shadows from his hair covered his eyes, giving him an eerie look, making Jiraiya pale. The last request is when we get to Konoha, I'm going to have you tell Tsunade why I was in your porn movie when she finds out. Jiraiya's eyes widened to epic proportions as he became as wide as a sheet. The thought of going to tell Tsunade that he had convinced her grandson's son figure to star in his Icha Icha movie was quite possibly the worst out of all three requests. Telling the other girls would not be nearly as bad, since they could never hope to match what his buxom teammate could do. Tsunade would no doubt string him up by his balls, beat the shit out of him, then use his manhood as a punching bag before she killed him. Images of all the pain Tsunade would no doubt inflict upon their return ran through his head, and Jiraiya did the only thing he could do in this situation. He fainted. Onato grinned as he looked at the man who was helping him and the few people he brought along, people who Onato had managed to join him in this quest after hearing they were going after the son of the Kirov Senko. "You better hold up your end of the deal," Onato told the man who scowled at him. "Of course I will," the man said, "so long as you hold up yours and kill Koyuki Kazahana. I can't stand having that woman doing what should be a man's job, and to make matters worse she's filming that movie." Yeah, whatever," Onato replied, "I already told you I'd get it done after I kill the Namikaze brat. Though I hear she is quite beautiful, so I think have a little fun with her first." Finally his chance for a revenge had come. 4 months later, Naruto and Koyuki were resting against a tree in the backyard of the palace after finishing up one of the scenes for the movie, and were now taking a break. Naruto closed his eyes and leaned back as he pulled Koyuki in between his legs, said woman, letting out a content sigh with a small smile on her face as she too closed her eyes to get some rest. It had been 4 months since he had come here and agreed to be in his sensei's perverted movie. He had a newfound respect for Koyuki's ability as an actress. He had never realized not only how hard it was to memorize lines but also how embarrassing it was. Naruto could not even count the number of times he had felt his face turn so red it looked like it was about to burst. Of course it could have something to do with the fact that the movie he was doing was porn and almost all of the lines were of a perverted and sleazy nature. It had taken Naruto about 2 months just to get over his embarrassment at some of the lines he had to say. He had also made sure to go out on a few more dates with Koyuki, often taking her for dinner and walks around some of the parks she had made around the palace. Doing so had allowed them to get to know things about each other that they had not known before, like Koyuki had a fear of snow rabbits after one had bitten her when she was a child. Of course Naruto had laughed at that, before Koyuki gave him that glare that all women seemed to possess, making the young man pale. He never knew an actress could be so petrifying. To compensate, he had told her of something he was afraid of. It was not known to anyone except Hiruka, but Naruto had a deathly fear of men with ridiculously long tongues. Of course only one man he knew had had a long tongue like that. Ever since his encounter with Orochimaru in the Forest of Death, where the snake man had wrapped his tongue around Naruto's neck, he had gotten nightmares about it. Especially after hearing of the man's fetish for little boys. Koyuki had not only found that funny but had made it a point to lick him as a greeting every morning afterwards, though it had the exact opposite effect that Orochimaru's tongue had given. Of course this had caused problems of another sort. Jiraiya had caught her straddling Naruto trying to lick the boy's face and began making several comments on how proud he was of Naruto. He not only got a Rasengan for his troubles, but Koyuki had several of her samurai take him outside and hang him on a flagpole by his underwear. Of course Naruto had not slacked off in his training either. The blonde had met with each of the summons and gotten to know their abilities and weaknesses. He found out that some of them would not work as well with his fighting style, but had gotten to know them anyway in the interest of keeping a good relation with the toads. Jiraiya had also taken to teaching him the Do techniques. Jiraiya had learned those being the Kushios, Gamaguchi Shibari, which summoned the nearly indestructible esophagus of a great fire-breathing toad and allowed it to cover an entire area. The Gamadaira Kajayasiri no Jutsu, allowing Naruto to become one with an enemy's shadow while at the same time paralyzing them, allowing the blonde to use them as a human shield. The last one he had learned so far was the Gamagakur no Jutsu, where Naruto would hide in the stomach of a special diving toad from Mount Mayaboku. While Naruto had yet to learn all the other ones yet, but the ones he did know, he had become proficient enough in them that Jiraiya and the toads were impressed. Naruto. Naruto looked down at Koyuki, who still had her eyes closed. "What will you do once you become Hokage?" she asked. "What do you mean?" Naruto tilted his head to the side as if trying to understand the question. Koyuki giggled at the cute and confused look Naruto had on his face. "I mean, what will you do after becoming Hokage? I've always wondered what you plan to do after you've accomplished that goal." Naruto looked at her for a moment as his eyes glazed over. Flashback. Naruto rubbed his eyes with his arms, getting the tears out before he looked at Jiraiya with a smile. "I guess I'll have to fix that when I become Hokage, ni?" Jiraiya chuckled as he ruffled Naruto's hair. "I guess so, but you won't become Hokage by moping about like this." "True piece?" Naruto asked in curiosity as he looked at his teacher. Jiraiya nodded. "I believe the time will come when we eventually understand each other." The white-haired man laughed, "Though I don't know how to do that yet." He looked over at Naruto. "If I can't find a way, then you'll do it for me." Naruto grinned. "You bet, Hiro-sensei." Flashback end. Naruto. Naruto blinked as he looked down at Koyuki. "I'm sorry, Koyuhime, what were you saying?" Koyuki gave him a worried glance for a second before giving him an exasperated look. though she still had a smile on her face. I was asking what you wanted to do after becoming Hokage. Ah. Right, Naruto chuckled as a sheepish grin spread across his face. Well, there are a lot of things I want to do. Koyuki waited for a moment to see if Naruto would tell her. After a few moments of waiting with no answer forthcoming, she got exasperated. Well? She asked. Well, I could tell you, but where would the fun in that be if you didn't figure it out on your own? Naruto said with a small twinkle in his eyes. Koyuki gave him a scowl for a second before the two began to laugh. Laying her head back down, she closed her eyes and snuggled into Naruto's chest, letting his warm presence engulf her as she listened to his heartbeat. Hey Naruto? She asked, getting his attention. Do you have any names for when we have children? Naruto made several choking noises as he felt his face burn up. 1. Come here Akiko-chan, Takane said in a lustful voice as he moved towards Akiko, making grabbing motions with his hands. Akiko backed up against the wall as she tried to resist. No, we can't. Ah. She was cut off as Takane grabbed her luscious breasts with his hands and began to knead them. Leaning down, Takane began nibble, kiss, lick and bite Akiko along her neck, leaving several love bites as Akiko's struggling began to weaken. Eventually the busty young woman felt her resistance to Takane's advances disappear as she wrapped her arms around his neck and began grinding her sex along the ever-enlarging tent in his pants. Takane slipped one of his hands inside her shirt and bra as he caressed and groped the woman's enticing and pert tits, loving the feel of her soft and supple skin in his hands as he played with the hardened nipple. Ah. Takane, Akiko gasped as she tried to form coherent thoughts and sentences. Take me. Ah. Take me now. Please. I thought you'd never ask Akiko-chan, Takane whispered in a husky voice as he began to nibble on her earlobe. And cut. The lights turned on, revealing the people who were here, cameraman who began to stop filming, the director who began to go on about how well the two acted, and Jiraiya who was giggling perversely. Takane and Akiko both took off the wigs they had been wearing, revealing them to be Naruto and Koyuki as the two walked off the set. So how did we do? Naruto asked, having finally become desensitized to the acting he was required to do. You two did excellent, the director said with tears in his eyes, just what I would expect from two amazing actors as yourself. This movie will no doubt be a hit that rivals even my Princess Gale movies. Naruto's sweat dropped as he watched the director burst into tears over a movie. Shaking his head, he looked at Koyuki with a smile. I guess that's a wrap then. The two chuckled at his corny joke before he continued. So I'll see you tonight? Of course, Koyuki said with a sultry smile. Don't be late Naruto-kun. Naruto grinned as he kissed Koyuki on the cheek and grabbed Jiraiya by the hair, pulling him along as said man went from complimenting his student to complaining about rude apprentices picking on their senseis. Koyuki smiled as she watched them go, before moving into her dressing room so she could get the movie makeup off. She looked herself over in the mirror as she finished scrubbing the last vestige of makeup off herself. Smiling, she was just about to change into some normal clothes when a knock came at her door. Come in. She called out absently as she turned around to see Naruto coming in her room. Oh Naruto-kun, did you forget something, or was it that you couldn't stand to be away from me? Koyuki asked with a grin. Naruto grinned as he walked up, causing Koyuki to frown at how wrong it looked. Actually, it was neither. The young daimyo had no time to react as a cloth was smothered over her nose. Koyuki's eyes widened as she tried to struggle. Unfortunately, whoever this imposter was far stronger than her, and she felt her eyes flutter closed and eventually everything went black. Naruto grunted as he skidded back from the powerful slash. As soon as his backwards momentum ceased, Naruto launched himself at his opponent again. A toad with two curved swords known as Gamataken. Because Naruto had no set sword style, he was having the toads who could use bladed weapons help him. They had agreed to teach them their style of fighting, letting Naruto get accustomed to various toad sword katas. Naruto found that this was something he enjoyed the most when working with the toads, and had created several kenjutsu moves that he and the toads he worked with used in conjunction. After blocking several more slashes and stabs, Naruto and Gamataken jumped apart, bowing to each other. Excellent job, young one, Gamataken said in a voice that was very similar to a samurai speaking to his apprentice. You are learning well. Thank you Gamataken-sensei, Naruto said as he unsealed a bottle from his wrist and took a long drink. He looked over at the sky and realized that it was getting late. Looking over at the sword-fighting toad, he bowed again. I must be getting back soon. It was nice studying with you as always. Gamataken nodded before bowing and returning to the summon world. Oi! Uro-sensei, Naruto called out to Jiraiya, who was over at the small river, no doubt looking at the women who were playing there. Grinning Naruto used the Orochi no Jutsu to transform into Naruko, a female version of Naruto with long blonde hair done up in twin ponytails and a figure that could rival Tsunade. Walking behind Jiraiya, Naruko put her hands over the white-haired pervert's eyes and pressed her ample bosom into his back. "Jiraiya-sama, why watch those girls when you can study me?" Naruko said in a sultry and seductive voice that sent chills down Jiraiya's spine. "I knew you would come out to play sooner or later, you little minx," Jiraiya said with a perverted grin and a large nosebleed as he turned around. Only to be disappointed as Naruto dispelled the transformation. "Come on perv," Naruto said as he hooked a thumb over his shoulders pointing towards the palace. "Time to go back." Turning around, Naruto started walking. Jiraiya caught up a moment later, grumbling about disrespectful gakis not letting an old man get his looks in. Naruto frowned as another of the maids told Naruto that she had not seen Koyuki anywhere. It was not like her to be late for one of their dates. Deciding to question the person who was the most likely to see Koyuki last, the blonde made his way towards the director's office. When he got there, Naruto knocked on the door. He waited for several minutes and after receiving no answer he frowned before opening it. The entire office was empty with no trace of the man having even been in it yet. Frowning, Naruto made his way to the set. When he got there, Naruto's eyes widened. Everyone was currently lying on the ground unconscious. Moving over to the director who was slumped in his chair, Naruto unrolled a scroll and unsealed several medical contents and a chemistry set. He took a small blood sample from the man and put it in a dropper, dropping it in a beaker with several chemicals in it. He stirred the contents until it was a light purple and then took out a special piece of paper containing a seal on the inside and unrolled it. The seal was another one of Naruto's inventions and was made to give him a diagnostic of any foreign substances in a person's body. Using a sample of someone's blood and mixing it with chakra-conductive ink that was normally used for sealing, Naruto had been able to use this as a replacement for the diagnostics jutsu that Tsunade and other medics were capable of performing. Placing the blood on it, he watched as the symbols for the seal began to move towards the blood sample. The ink coalesced into the center and started forming words listing off the different compounds that were found in the man. One of which Naruto recognized as chloroform and another as a form of nerve gas. Narrowing his eyes, Naruto made his way to Koyuki's room. Smashing through the door, Naruto looked around the room and saw the small area near the mirror desk combo where Koyuki did her makeup was a bit of a mess, with the chair knocked over and several makeup kits scattered around it. Walking over to it, he channeled a small amount of Kyuubi's chakra into his nose. There were minute traces of chloroform in the air here as well. Naruto's mind began to deduce what happened as he realized someone must have infiltrated the palace, snuck in chloroforming Koyuki either sometime before or after letting a bomb of knockout gas in the set room. The blonde frowned, knowing that sneaking into the palace would be a nearly impossible task, even for someone of Jiraiya or his caliber, meaning there's a traitor either living in the palace or Koyuki's court. Making several hand seals, Naruto slammed his hands into the ground and summoned a small messenger toad. "I want you to go to Jiraiya and tell him that someone has kidnapped Koyuki. Let him know that there is a traitor either within the palace or on the Haru no Kuni Council, and ask him to find out who it is," Naruto ordered without preamble. The toad, realizing this was important, nodded and went to find the toad Senin. Naruto used his enhanced senses again to see if there was anything that would help determine who the attacker was. There is a faint trace of earth. This left several possibilities, but one of them stood out to Naruto the most. Crouching down similar to a bloodhound, Naruto began to sniff out the source of the smell. Koyuki woke up with a groan. She opened her eyes blearily, trying to get the faint blurriness out of her vision. Blinking a few times as she looked around, finding herself in what looked like one of the abandoned factories where Dodo had built his war machines. She tried to move a hand to her face but soon found them to be bound. Her eyes widened as she tried to get out, only to find that she was having no such luck. Looking at herself, she found that she was tied to a chair that was bolted to the floor. Her ankles were bound to it and her hands were tied around the back. She tried to wiggle her arms and loosen her bindings so she could get free. That won't work. Koyuki's eyes widened as she looked up to see a man with scraggly black hair and green eyes grinning at her. "That ninja wire is strong enough to hold even the most powerful shinobi. A little spoiled princess like you will have no luck escaping those." Koyuki glared at the man, knowing that he was the one who most likely kidnapped her. "Who are you? What do you want with me?" Oneto paused as he seemed to think about answering before he shrugged. "I suppose it doesn't matter if I tell you. It's not like you're gonna live long anyway. You're just a means to an end for me. I'm simply using you to get to the person I want to kill." "The person you wanted to kill?" Koyuki questioned as she studied the man. He was definitely a shinobi, that much was clear. Except he didn't show any Hideo 8, meaning he was either a missing ninja or was trying not to implicate his country. "And who is it you want to kill?" she asked, determined to get as much information as possible. Onato gave her a grin that sent chills down her spine. "Why, I'm gonna kill your boyfriend, of course." "Naruto." Koyuki breathed as her eyes widened. "That's right," Onato laughed, "I'm finally gonna get my revenge by killing the son of that man. Then I'm gonna kill you." He walked up to her and Koyuki began to fight with her bindings even more. "It's a shame I gotta kill you though, you're quite the specimen." He trailed a finger along her jaw but was forced to pull it back when Koyuki tried to bite it. "Ha! And feisty too it seems. Perhaps after this is over I'll have some fun before I kill you." Koyuki shuddered at the tone in the man's voice. It was a tone that had insanity mixed in with lust. Obviously this man had lost his mind a long time ago. "Onato." Koyuki turned her head to see a man running towards them. "He's here." "Good, very good," Onato said with a smile. "Why don't you and the others go and welcome our guest?" The man left and Onato turned to Koyuki with a rag. Realizing what it was, the female daimyo began to struggle. The black-haired man merely laughed as he put the rag over her face, watching as Koyuki's eyes rolled into the back of her head. Naruto looked at the large building that the scent had led him to. The place was up in one of the more mountainous regions of Haru no Kuni. The building itself was a very industrialized factory with several smokestacks and what looked like a large furnace or smelting factory. The blonde Namikaze heir knew what it was. Back when Dodo had been the daimyo, he had several of these places made. They were large factories that turned out numerous types of weapons and vehicles. It was here that the chakra armor, kunai launchers and blimps were built. Naruto knew that Koyuki still had a few of them going to help build up Haru's defenses, but this one was obviously abandoned for some reason or another. Likely Koyuki had not even known about it, meaning this one had made something that Dodo wanted kept secret. Pausing at the entrance, Naruto looked up. Chances were high they were expecting him to either use the main or back entrances or one of the windows on the upper levels. It was likely they would have several traps waiting for him at those locations. That meant that the most efficient way to get inside would be to enter somewhere they would not expect him to. Moving around the side, Naruto stopped when he estimated that he was halfway between the front and back entrances. Getting out a brush, Naruto began to write on the wall. The seal he was using was called an intangibility seal, and like the name suggests, it allowed a solid object to become intangible, allowing people and other objects to pass through it unhindered. This was done by having the seal affect the atomic particles that all matter was created from and making them become loose from each other. When that happened, one could pass through a solid object as if it was water. Jiraiya had told him it was one of his more ingenious seals and would be a boon for infiltration and espionage missions. Once he finished writing, Naruto channeled some chakra into the seal to activate them. Placing his hands on the wall, the blonde watched as a ripple went through the wall, stopping where Naruto had placed absorption and dispersion seal to make sure that the intangibility effect was confined to a certain area. Once Naruto's hands sunk into the wall, he began to walk through, feeling the particles move out of the way of his mess. When he was all the way through, Naruto activated his invisibility jutsu and started to search the area, making sure that he created a map within his mind. The place he was in was definitely a factory of some kind. Several assembly lines were set up in a linear path inside the room. Looking at it, Naruto saw what looked like molds for the chakra armor Naruto saw Dodo wearing, making Naruto suspicious that this had been the place Dodo's completed version of chakra armor came from. Refocusing his thoughts, Naruto crept through the room and made it into a hallway. Deciding to head left, Naruto walked silently along the wall. He channeled chakra into his ears, hoping that he could make out some kind of sound. While he could not hear anything, he eventually found himself reaching the end of the hall. At the end there was a large set of steel doors that were partially opened. If Naruto's internal map was correct, this was somewhere near where the back entrance was located. Making a cage bushin, Naruto had it open the door in case of traps. When none were forthcoming, the clone dispelled and Naruto walked in. The first thing he noticed was that the room was large. It looked like some kind of practice range for jutsu or weapons. There was an area with targets made to look like people. Most of them were destroyed or had rusted and broken from disuse. On the opposite side were several lockers that Naruto was now positive stored weapons and the chakra armor. This place was most likely where they did testing on the products they built here. The second thing that Naruto noticed was that Koyuki was here. She was bound together on the wall opposite from him. Her legs were wrapped together and the sleeves of her arms were pinned to the wall with kunai, making her look like she was on a crucifix. Naruto narrowed his eyes when he recognized the ninja wire as 8th grade composite silk steel, a type that Iwagakure had been known to use during the 3rd Great Ninja War. He started running towards her only for his ninja instincts to kick in at the last second, rolling to the left as several kunai and shuriken came at him. Finishing his roll, he moved onto his feet and realized he was surrounded. Taking a millisecond, he analyzed his opponents. There were 6 of them. Most looked rather plain, wearing standard ninja clothing with no identification marks, nor did they have on Hideo 8s. However, Naruto knew this could mean anything. He immediately disclosed the idea that this was a ninja mercenary unit. Aside from the fact that there were very few ninja mercenaries, the only units he knew actually existed were Akatsuki, who was considered a mercenary group right now. The fact that this was also an apparent trap for him rather than Koyuki added to that fact, since while it could be a unit sent by one of his enemies, it was also not likely. His only enemies were Akatsuki and Iwa. Akatsuki would never hand off the capturing of Jinchuriki to others, and Iwa would rather kill him themselves. Naruto looked at the smirking man in front of him as he began running a mental checklist of all the people he knew or recognized from somewhere. Eventually Naruto hit pay dirt. Onato Kazuchi, a rank ninja of Iwagakure, also known as Iron Fist Onato, specializes in using the stone and iron particles in the earth and combining them with your arms to give your arms a powerful super strength, similar to that of Tsunade of the Sennin. Onato's smirk widened. Just what I would expect from the son of that man. But your knowledge won't save you here. If you give up, I may let your girlfriend spend some quality time with me before I kill her. Naruto snarled as he charged at the man, completely forgetting everything around him. The only thought running through his mind was that he was going to enjoy hanging this man up by his intestines. Instincts kicked in again, and it was only his hard-earned reflexes that saved him from being impaled by several earth spikes that shot up in front of Onato. Jumping into the air, the blonde shinobi flipped over the Iwa Jonin and threw several shuriken at him. Ninpa, Shuriken Kage Bushin no Jutsu. Without words or hand seals, the 5 shuriken became 50 as they head for the black-haired man. Onato's eyes widened for a moment before he jumped out of the way and pulled out a kunai to deflect what he was incapable of dodging. Naruto charged at him with 2 kunai in hand as he tried to impale the man through the skull. Before he could get to close, 2 of the ninja came in, one going with a high kick and the other hoping to take Naruto out at the knees. Ducking under the kick from the first ninja, Naruto placed his left hand on the ground as he pushed himself in the air just a centimeter above the foot swipe, grabbing the foot from the man who did the high kick as he spun. Using his impressive physical strength and momentum, lifted the man up by his ankle as he flipped, spinning the man around as he landed on the ground and slammed enemy ninja into the concrete surface with a loud crack. As small spider webs appeared underneath the man where the cement gave under the power of Naruto's assault. Rolling to the left, Naruto dodged an incoming kick. Twisting his body 180 degrees, the blonde came up on his feet and blocked a kunai strike to the neck. Channeling wind chakra into his kunai, Naruto sliced through the enemy's kunai, allowing Naruto to close the distance on the now wide-eyed ninja, smashing both palms into the man's solar plexus and sent him flying back, who crashed into and through the wall. Spinning on his heels, Naruto grabbed a kunai that was sent to impale him and threw it back towards his thrower with wind chakra added to it. The kunai went straight through the Iwa ninja's left lung as if it was mere air, causing the man to scream violently. Flipping himself backwards, Naruto was able to dodge an Iwa ninja who had attempted to impale him. Going through a few hand signs, Naruto's cheeks bulged as he smashed a hand on his stomach. Fuuten, Rinkudan. A large ball of compressed air shot from Naruto's mouth and smashed into the man's head. Not bothering to even look at the gore he created, Naruto landed on the ground. Doten, Doryu Taiga. Naruto cursed as he found himself slipping along the ground as a large river of mud smashed into him. Doten, Doryusu. Several spears shot out of the mud river and impaled Naruto in various vital areas, only for Naruto to disappear in a burst of smoke. The real Naruto appeared right behind the man who had done the jutsu with a spinning ball of chakra in his hand, smashing the Rasengan into the man's back, causing the man to scream as his flak jacket was ripped to shreds along with the flesh and muscles located in his back. Taking several deep breaths, Naruto stood up and looked around. 5 of the 6 ninja who had attacked him were either dead or unconscious. However, Onato was missing. Looking over to where Koyuki was, Naruto narrowed his eyes at seeing her gone too. Seeing the door on the other side partially open, Naruto charged through it and outside as he followed the scent that he recognized as Koyuki. Damn that boy! Onato cursed as he carried a still unconscious Koyuki over his shoulder. He had been so sure that they would be able to kill that blasted Namikaze if they caught him off guard. Perhaps he should have tried to take Jonin with him instead of Chunin. Maybe then he would have had a better shot, but he had been impatient. Well, doesn't matter, I'll get him next time. He looked at the young woman over his shoulder and smirked. And I still got her. I think I will have a little fun with her before I kill her, then I'll tell that blasted Onato. Turning his head, Onato cursed as he saw Naruto running straight for him and gaining fast. Channeling as much chakra as he was able to, he increased his speed. Seeing this, Naruto threw off his cloak and increased his own speed, leaving the cloak behind to smash into the ground and create a large crater. Naruto found himself swiftly closing in on the man he was going to beat into a coma, but Oneto still seemed to have a few tricks up his sleeve as he threw several makibishi on the ground behind him. This forced Naruto to jump in the air, slowing his forward momentum and allowing Oneto to gain some distance. When Naruto finally caught up to the Iwa Jonin to see the man standing at the edge of a cliff face, Oneto spun around and smirked as he looked at Naruto. "I may not be able to kill you right now," Oneto said as his smirk turned into a large grin that seemed to scream insanity. "But I'm at least gonna make sure that I hurt in some way." Naruto's eyes widened as Oneto threw Koyuki off the cliff. "Now it's your turn to feel the pain of losing someone you love." "Ha ha oof." The man's laughing rant was cut off as Naruto smashed his fist in the man's gut with enough force to send him flying off the cliff as well. Not wasting a moment, Naruto threw himself headfirst over the ledge, channeling wind chakra in front of him to cut through the air to decrease the wind resistance around him and allow him to speed up. Naruto caught up with Koyuki and wrapped an arm around her waist before flashing to Oneto, who he had placed a Hiraishin seal on when he hit him. Creating a cage bushin to grab Oneto, Naruto threw a kunai high into the air. Both Narutos flashed to it and Naruto re-threw the kunai so it was back to where he had jumped. Flashing one more time, the clone Naruto dropped Oneto and dispelled. Before the man could even think to get away, Naruto stomped his face into the ground with a foot, lifting it up several more times and brought it down. Not stopping until there was a sizable indent in the shape of Oneto's face as the now unconscious man bled from his mouth, nose and ears. Sighing, Naruto looked at Koyuki, who was still completely out of it. Readjusting her so that her head was resting on his shoulder, Naruto created another clone to tie Oneto up and bring him with them. With luck, Jiraiya would be able to interrogate the man and find out if this was Iwa trying to kill him, or if the man had acted on his own. A fat and fairly short man with cropped brown hair and dark black eyes was running through the hall of his mansion as if the hounds of hell were after him. This could be likened to the truth, only instead of hounds it was a group of samurai. The man eventually made it to his office and barred the doors shut, pushing his desk and several other large objects in the way in an attempt to hold them so he could use his secret escape route. Moving over to his fireplace, he twisted one of the statues on it and watched with an impatient air as the fireplace began to rotate. Only to see a tall man with spiky white hair. The fat man turned around to try and get away, only to feel a sharp pain in the back of his neck just as the samurai burst through the door. XXXXXXXXXXXX. Jiraiya walked down the hall towards the room he knew his apprentice most likely was. As he did, he gave a few whistles and cat calls to some of the maids he passed, much to their disdain. Reaching the room, the white-haired Sennin knocked on the door. "Come in." Opening the door, Jiraiya found his prized pupil sitting on the bed, with Koyuki's head in his lap as he gently ran his hands through the young woman's hair. It had been a few days since the fiasco where Koyuki had been kidnapped and used as bait to get to Naruto. Since then, his blonde apprentice had refused to let the daimyo out of his sight and had even gone so far as to threaten anyone except for a few people that Koyuki seemed to trust when they came near her. Resisting the urge to tease his apprentice, Jiraiya got the young man's attention. "I got the information you wanted." "Which bit?" asked Naruto as Koyuki turned on her side to look at the white-haired man. "Both," Jiraiya said with a smirk as he tossed the blonde a scroll while Koyuki sat up and put her head on his shoulder. Jiraiya bit his lip so as not to let out a perverted giggle, knowing what kind of pain it would bring as he continued. "It seems that the one who allowed them to infiltrate the palace was a council member by the name of Kawasai Fuuki. He had apparently made a deal with Oneto to allow him entrance so long as he killed you, Koyuki Dono." Koyuki frowned. "I am not surprised by that. When Dodo had his cup, that Kawasai had literally vanished. At the time, many of us thought he had been killed off. But when he returned some time after the war claiming to have been imprisoned and escaped, many became suspicious of him. Though no one could ever prove anything, and he had at least outwardly shown support for myself and my father." Jiraiya nodded. It seems that he had been hiding out in an isolated region of Haru no Kuni to the northeast and returned when he had heard of Dodo's defeat. "My guess is he was waiting for an opportunity to kill you and take over himself." The movie, combined with the Iwa ninja who had come to kill Naruto, presented him the perfect opportunity. "Thankfully he won't be a bother since the man was arrested by your forces just a few hours ago." Koyuki nodded as Naruto asked his next question. "What about Oneto? Was this a planned assassination or the result of a man driven by revenge?" "Apparently it was revenge," Jiraiya said as he crossed his arms. "I was able to find out that he had been told specifically not to go after you by the Tsuchikage. It seemed that with the old man ordering him not to kill you, he became unhinged, I guess would be the best way to put it. He managed to forge mission documents and handed them to several Chunin. They were so eager to kill the son of the Yondaime I doubt they even noticed they were fake. Naruto nodded, "Very well, I will send a message to Iwa letting them know to keep a better leash on their ninja and to make sure they give some form of reparations to me and Koyuheim for not making a war over this little incident." Jiraiya smiled at his apprentice's decision. It was both wise and a good tactical move as far as politics went and would put the Sundai Tsuchikage in his pocket, since the old man would be smart enough to realize that it was only because of Naruto that his village would not be destroyed. This assassination fiasco should also keep their ninja in check, since they just officially not only failed but would have to be weary of Konoha finding out. Clapping his hands together, Jiraiya smirked at the two of them. "Now that all of this boring stuff is out of the way, I've come to tell you that we will be filming again." Naruto sighed. "Somehow I knew you would bring that up." He looked over at Koyuki, who shrugged. "I suppose it can't be helped." "Of course we've got to finish this movie," Jiraiya shouted as he pumped his fist in the air, causing Naruto to groan. Lunoki looked out of the window in his office as he stared at the buildings below, his current mind going through the conversation he had with Oneto a few months ago. He had not seen the man again afterwards and was beginning to get worried. It was well known that his hatred for the Kirov Senko yearned far deeper than anyone else's. That he had not shown up for a mission or anything like he usually did in the past few months was worrying. A knock at the door interrupted his thoughts. "Enter," he ordered. The door opened and in walked one of his messenger ninja who had a scroll in his hands. "Sir, this scroll came from Haru no Kuni?" Lunoki frowned as he took the scroll. Iwa had not had any form of relation since they stopped exporting coal from them decades ago. What could possibly be their reason for sending them a message? "You may go," Lunoki ordered the messenger, who bowed and left. The old Tsuchikage unrolled the scroll and began to read the contents, his eyes widening with each sentence. "Dear Sundai Tsuchikage Dono, I regret to inform you that as of several days ago your ninja Oneto along with 5 Chunin-level shinobi were killed after an attempted assassination on my persons. Because of this I will be requesting 1 million yen both to my account as well as another 1 million to the account of Koyuki Kazaana for Oneto's kidnapping and attempted murder of the Haru no Kuni daimyo. If you do not comply with this demand, I will be forced to let out the information that you attempted to murder not just a shinobi of Konoha but also a daimyo. However, should you do this, I am willing to overlook what has happened here so long as you never attempt something similar and learn to keep your shinobi on a better leash. From Naruto Uzumaki Namikaze." Lunoki sat back in his chair as he felt his shoulders slump. This was a complete disaster. Not only would he have to pay all of that money in order to keep this from getting out and destroying his village by starting a war, but he also had to let the families of those men know that because of a man's lust for revenge these people died. The only saving grace, which really was not a saving grace, was that the person who was attacked would forget and drop all charges so long as he was able to hold up his end of the bargain. He closed his eyes as he pinched the bridge of his large nose. Getting out several sheets of paper, he began to write letters for the families of the deceased. XXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXX to be filming in. They had yet to hear even a peep from the room and both were wondering what was going on. "It's been nearly 8 hours, the director said. What do you think they're doing in there?" "Hell if I know," Jiraiya said with a frown as he walked up to the door and knocked. "Oi. Gaki, are you and Koyuki Dono going to get started or what?" When he received no response, Jiraiya tried to open the door only to find it locked. Unsure what to do, Jiraiya decided that it would be best if he did not try to break the door down and incur the wrath of his apprentice. He walked over back to the director. "Let's just leave them in there for now. We'll come back later and see if anything's happened yet." 4 days later, Naruto and Koyuki had still not come out of the room and the two were getting worried. Jiraiya was just about to go up and break down the door. Just then the door opened and out walked Naruto and Koyuki. Naruto was sporting a rather large smile while Koyuki had frazzled hair, a noticeable limp and that odd after-sex glow that all women seem to get after hot passionate sex. Jiraiya paused in his walk as he gave Naruto a lecherous grin. "I was beginning to wonder when you would get out. I guess you two were just having too much fun. So did you do the scenes correctly?" Naruto tilted his head to the side and frowned. "Scenes? You know the scenes for the movie?" Jiraiya asked. Naruto looked over at Koyuki, who gave him a shrug. Sorry, I guess we forgot that we were even making a movie." Jiraiya looked at the two before he fell over anime style. Naruto grinned as he picked up Koyuki bridal style. "So what say we go take a shower and order some room service?" When the two left, Jiraiya got up and groaned as he rubbed his face. Stupid Gaki can't even remember he's making a movie. He had better done some amazing stuff in there, or I'm never gonna have him film in one of my movies again. Later that day, both Jiraiya and the director were found dead. The doctors who did the autopsy deduced that it was caused by massive bleeding of the sinuses. When they tried to figure out why they were given a tape which had been found in the VCR the two were next to, when the doctors played it, they too were killed by massive nosebleeds. The video was of Koyuki and Naruto having sex for 4 straight days. Several days later, the movie was found by someone else who decided to put it on the market. Many males ended up buying the movie only for all of them to die as well, thus became what was known as the Great Icha Icha Massacre. That's it for this video. I hope you all enjoyed the video. Don't forget to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and follow me on my other social media accounts. Anime God here, and I'm signing off.